A hoax? Is affordability really a hoax, or is it just a simple truth that America can't afford to live in America anymore unless you're a Trump or a Rockefeller or one of these tech moguls? Because the truth is that we don't have to look at politicians to get an answer about affordability. We just need to look at our own national credit card debt. Because in this country right now, the national credit card debt is $1.7 trillion overall. Now, that number, depending on which report, could be a little bit higher, but I'm just using $1.7 trillion as a benchmark. Because when you look at the cost of living and look at what people are doing to be able to survive, it becomes clear that people are using their credit cards to bridge the gap on their affordability of their lives right now. The truth is that right now, a year ago, our national credit card debt was $1.0164 trillion. In just a year of the Tangerine Twat Waffle's reign as grand moron of our people, he has risen the credit card debt up to $1.7 trillion. Now, putting all the name calling aside, let's just acknowledge the fact that our credit card debt in this country went up $700 billion in just 1 year, which proves that Americans are using their credit cards to bridge the gap between their paychecks and their cost of living. And that is indentured servitude. That is showing the American people that you have to live under credit card debt just to live. Do you understand that people's paychecks were supposed to be designed to pay their bills? Now, granted, we've all lived paycheck to paycheck at times, but when you watch a credit card debt overall for the country jump up $700 billion in just 1 year, it becomes clear that more and more Americans or people living in the America are using their credit cards to be able to bridge the gap between starvation and living. This country's economic crises are staggering. And the fact that our Tangerine Twat Waffle in the Oval Circus, who's a Republican leader, not my president, wants to sit here and call the affordability of America a hoax created by Democrats is preposterous when you're watching the fact that eggs are costing more every day. The cost of living is increasing exponentially. And while tons of MAGA supporters are pointing their fingers saying, well, if undocumented immigrants were locked in cages, we'd all be able to afford our breakfast every day, is stupid. Because it doesn't take a rocket scientist, it doesn't take a Democrat, it doesn't take a Republican, it just takes a human being to watch and see exactly what the cost of living is, what people are being paid each day, and then the fact to watch to see, hey, why is the credit card debts going up through the roof? Now, America has been a consumer of useless goods for decades, but right now, as it sees, we're watching large people like Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart, all seeing their sales go down as far as number of prices, whatever it is, but the costs go up and up and up. Credit card debt in this country rose $700 billion in a year. And yet nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that it's because of the cost of living, not just because everybody wants the latest Honey Boo Boo or Labubu doll that's out. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, so I don't exactly remember all of the names of all the things my kids want every day. But what I do know is that the amount of stuff that we can purchase now is much less than what we could purchase a year ago, and even 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And the reality is that we're watching more and more Americans be laid off, fired, work furloughed, and now we're seeing the credit card debts going up and up and up and up, which means that Americans are becoming indentured servants. Because when you have to work just to pay off your credit card debt, that's exactly what indentured servitude is. That's exactly what this country has done to its poor for decades upon decades. If you don't know, just let me explain a little history lesson for you. Because back when China was dumping all of their people into this country in the 1800s, and they couldn't afford to feed their people, and Chinese were coming over here and they were working on the railroads, railroad tycoons were actually creating and building towns where they didn't actually pay the Chinese people actual money. They paid them in fake money that could only be used in the towns that they created. So what was happening is these Chinese people were working 18 hours a day, getting fake paper money like you get from Monopoly, and then they were using that fake money to purchase food that was being provided by the tycoons, the railroad tycoons. So now you have a situation where in this country, in modern day 2025, you have people that are not working to buy things, but just pay back their credit card debts because they couldn't afford on their own paycheck to purchase the things necessary. So they had no choice but to get into credit card debt. So now we're living in a time where people aren't actually working hard to buy things for their family. They're working hard just to be able to provide food, shelter, and space over their heads to make sure that their families are taken care of. And this is not affordability. This is a crisis of humanity. This president does not care about the people of this country. He does not care about the fact that you can't afford to pay your food, your rent, and your car payment all in the same month anymore without either going into credit card debt or just simply ignoring the phone calls from all of these creditors that are hammering you going, we want our money. So the reality of it is this: affordability is not a Democratic hoax. It is a horrific and absolutely disgusting state of affairs that this country is in. Because right now, as it stands, more Americans are living off their credit cards than their paychecks. And this country wants to ignore it. And this president simply doesn't care about it because he's too worried about enriching his own family, his friends, and the billionaires who are doing all of this to us. And what is all these Americans doing instead of bitching about the fact that they're living off their credit cards? They're focused on the things that don't matter, like immigrants in cages and whether or not those bombs that landed on the boats in the Caribbean had drugs in them or not. It's a sad state of affairs when we're watching a criminal enterprise pretend to be the United States government. I've ranted long enough. I would love to hear from more of you. I'm going to set this up more, but these rants are things that I want to bring forward to people's minds, and I would love to hear what people have to say. I don't even know how to use this app right now, but I wanted to come on and bring this forward and make people question, think, and if you like this and you want to hear more, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I don't even realize. Okay, there we go. I'm not hurting, and my retirement is doing super good. Well, congratulations. It's wonderful to see. Dude, get the mental health. Okay, so people not being able to buy food and pay their rent and the electric all in on their paychecks instead of using credit card. That's something to joke about. Okay. All right. I don't need to be insulted, so you can just pound sand. And even if I was gay, it doesn't change the fact that, I can't afford to sleep with your mom. How's that? Are we going to go into this realm of negativity? Oh, my God. True astronaut. All right. Well, thank you for the insults. I really appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to come in and insult me. That's awesome. I'm pretty sure he was. Well, you know what? If anybody's insulting anybody in this live, it's not going to happen. Because one thing I'm really good at is just insulting people back. If you come here and you want to talk and you want to hear what I have to say, God, I appreciate it so much. And the reality of it is this, is that affordability isn't a hoax. It's not something that was just created by the Democrats. And the fact that the Tangerine Twat Waffle, who this guy apparently seems to like respect and love and want to mouth hug, doesn't realize that this administration actually ran on the whole premise during his election that affordability and that he was going to try to help make things affordable again. And eggs aren't down. Do you realize that an average American family of four are spending anywhere from $60 to $80 a week just on breakfast alone for the week? It used to be pennies on the dollar. You used to be able to buy a dozen eggs for $2 up until about maybe 3 years ago. But yet they're shooting through the roof. Pound of bacon, $10 every single time, no matter where you go. And yet you're sitting here laughing and giggling and going, "Oh, my retirement is great. Great, that's awesome. I'm glad that your life is going so well that you're just excited about life and you're happy in your little cave." But the fact is that a lot of Americans that are living in this country right now, whether they're U.S. citizens, undocumented, or even, as you want to call, illegals, they're starving. That's and in a country that's supposedly, the richest in the world, and that we're the country of first, and America is the best in everything, and we're number one in everything. Why is it that we're leading in poverty, we're behind in education, and why is it that this economic growth has come to a stall? And why is it that a lot of other countries are stopped looking at us as an ally and looking at us as a possible enemy? I'm in Florida, unfortunately. Oh, don't kid yourself. Homeless veterans are just as important as anything else. Undocumented immigrants, homeless veterans. How about the fact that this tangerine twat waffle created and signed an executive order outlawing homelessness in this country, and that by that executive order, he can actually lock up the homeless as well as the mentally ill into cages or detention centers without any provocation, without any warrants, or without any jurisdiction. His executive order allows him to lock up the homeless. And considering like 46% of the homeless are veterans, it's astonishing. This guy has less care for the homeless or less care for the veterans of this country. He couldn't even be bothered serving his country. He couldn't even be bothered standing up, swearing an oath, and defending this country against foreign or domestic terrorists during his time when he could have actually gone to military service and served in Vietnam. He dodged the draft 5 separate times. He got bone deferment and all of these types of things to avoid serving his country. And now he wanted a parade celebrating him by the military that he wouldn't be bothered, serving in. And now he's created an executive order like 3 months ago that actually outlawed homelessness, and which would then lock up military veterans that are homeless right now. So, it started with immigrants, it moved to the homeless, it went to the mentally ill, and now it's what? Gay people, women that speak up, because, you've got people like Christian nationalists that want to actually take and, take away the rights of women. I mean, Christian nationalists like Charlie Kirk and a bunch of the others are all trying to propose the idea that women shouldn't vote, and that the vote should be a household thing, that the leader of the household should make the votes, and that's the way that it should be. And so the 19th Amendment should be abolished. How do you feel about that? My idea on all of this is to come on, do a rant, do a short live, get people engaged in my page, see some of the things that I talk about on my page, see if it's something that you're interested in, and then hopefully get some comments. It would never happen. You think that this country couldn't abolish the 19th Amendment? Are you kidding me? Do you also think that they're actually going to release the Epstein files on the 19th? The same government who has denied the Epstein files existed, who demanded transparency across the board, but yet has refused to release the Epstein files, even though it took an act of Congress to get them finally to man up. Maybe New York and Chicago. I don't understand what that means. I don't understand what that means. But listen, I'm only on for 15 minutes. I'm going to plan on doing another live later on today. But if you're interested, I would love to hear what you have to say. When we turn when we turn socialist. Well, honestly, why is it that socialism is so bad? Because right now Congress is working under a socialist network because they're taking our tax dollars and they're paying their own insurance with our tax dollars. They're paying their food. Do you know that Congress people voted against schools providing free lunch to their children, but yet Congress also voted to make sure that their food and their lunches are paid for as long as they're in Congress? So why is it? And here's the other thing. You think you're against socialism, but do you know that blue states produce more money than red states and that the blue states pay into the federal government? The federal government and then in turn takes the dividends of the blue states and gives it to the red states to help subsidize them. I apologize. I'm ADHD. What can I tell you? I start talking about different things, and I think there's a lag. But I will be back again, and it looks like there's three people here. Which thank you very much for coming into the live. As I was talking about, this originally started out as a discussion of affordability and the fact that this country seems to be hell bent on considering affordability a hoax, but the truth is that there is affordability issue here. We have United States citizens and people living in the United States that are using their credit cards to bridge the gap between their paychecks as well as their cost of living. And nothing is proving that more than the fact that the national credit card debt in this country jumped from 1 trillion last year to 1.7 trillion this year. That is a massive amount of credit card debt that is popped up out of nowhere. That's because you say that the affordability issue is because America is irresponsible. You're absolutely right. If affordability if affordability was just based on, you know, the cost of living, that would be one thing. But there are people that are still out spending money on Starbucks even though they don't have their rent paid. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a responsibility, but it doesn't change the fact that the cost of living has exponentially jumped up so blatantly, horrible that we're literally watching rent be raised 20-30% from one year to the next. And that's not in every state. Like New York has rent control, but Florida doesn't. Florida can raise the rent as much as they want as long as the market will bear. You have no recourse or argument against your landlord raising your rent 30% from one year to the next, even though they're not providing anything new. They haven't done any upgrades to your thing, but they can still do it. And they've done it here in Florida. A one bedroom, one bath used to be like, $800 to $1,000. It is now almost $3,000. And that's been in a course of like 3 or 4 years. Just bang, 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 bang. Some places it's gone from $1,500 for a two to $3,500 in 1 year. That's an affordability crisis. That is absolutely the definition. You have more people using their credit cards to buy their food. So, but it's horrible. How can someone be so happy they finance vehicles for 10 years at 12%? Well, that's just stupidity, to be honest with you, because people are so interested in. Listen, I'm not going to disagree with you. There are tons of people that want the new shiny bauble. They want the new thing. They don't, and they're willing to sign away. I mean, the Tangerine Twat Waffle in the Oval Circus was trying to put past a 50-year mortgage. I mean, mortgages forever have been 30 years, but he was trying to do a 50-year mortgage, which would only benefit the banks because basically most people would die before they finished paying off they were never going to see a time when they weren't paying for their house. It doesn't make any sense. Car loans used to be 4 years, 5 years at most. Now all of a sudden 7, now they're going to 10 at 12%. You're never paying that vehicle off because you're going to be late all of the time. You're going to the interest is going to be so compounded that instead of spending, $5,000 extra on that car for interest, you're almost paying as much for the car in interest as the car itself. would you purchase a 50-year mortgage at 1%? It depends on what the refinance would be. But 50-year mortgage? No. I mean, you're brutally pricing yourself into oblivion. You're never gonna. I mean, think about it. You're never going to actually see the light of day. You're never gonna pay that off because it's hard enough for a 30-year. You have 50 years. Your kids are adopting that. Adopting that debt. It's brutal. You know what I mean? Nothing says you can't pay it off in 10 years. Yeah, but well, all right. All right. So you think you're going to enter into a 50-year mortgage and somehow pay it off in 10 years if all the stars align and this, that, and the other. But in this day and age, this buying power of the dollar is so weak and inflation is increasing. I mean, half of the reason why our unemployment rate is skyrocketing up and is now almost at 5%, which I think it's probably higher, but they're just lying and don't want us to actually be aware of what's going on. Do you realize that honestly, that we're looking at a situation where people are having a hard time finding work. The tariffs have basically frozen all new growth of construction or type of businesses, whatever like this. So you're telling me that that banks are really interested in even giving mortgages to people right now? You know what? And I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to read everything because for some reason, the way that this is set up is so like I mean, I'm not saying TikTok is better in any way, shape, or form, but the way that this is designed is just horrible because it's hard to read everything that you're writing. I refinanced my home from a 6% to a 2.2 back in 2018. Yeah, but see, the thing of it is, you're getting interest rates in 2018. We weren't dealing with what we're dealing with right now. Yeah, okay. What you said is logical. I can't beat your math. You have an exact point. But the problem is what you got in 2018 isn't the same deals that are being written now in 2025. And the funny thing is that but see, the interest rates are coming back down, but also the cost of the homes are so much higher than they were in 2018. Florida's property values are so unrealistic. Where are you from, by the way? I don't know what state you're in. And I'm going to tell you, thank you for being in my live. I've only done, I typically when I do these lives, I'm usually just doing like a rant and I leave it up on the post. Texas. Okay. Nice to see you from Texas. I hope that you are subscribing to me. I hope you'll check out some of my other lives. They're usually like 5-10 minute long, little like beats of what's going on. But I want to say thank you to you for being here. And I am going to say goodbye, everybody. And I hope that you guys will see me on my next live.